Okay, this is the Cal Aggie P12 crit. This is Pete Morris's camera. Pete.
Hey guys.
This is like Pete actually knows what he's doing, and I am a lower category racer. My name's Nate, and we're gonna look at this race and break it down. And Pete's gonna give us tips about how to race crits better. So, What is this crit like, Pete?
So this is a pretty wide open, plenty of room to get around with two tight corners, kind of a chicane, and one 90-degree bend. But I would call this pretty straightforward as far as crits go. Plenty of room to move around, and enough people here to make the race interesting.
Do you know most of the people in this race?
Sort of. So I moved back from Colorado last year, and so I recognize a handful of people. But this is the first race of the season, so even though I know who some of the people are, I don't know how they're riding this season, and I don't really know how I'm riding this season. So that's kind of the interesting part about the first race of the season is you have to take everything with a grain of salt and see how everybody's riding.
Now you're kind of far off the back of the field right now. Why are you doing this?
Usually at the beginning of the race, there's plenty of surginess or sketchiness. So my philosophy is either start on the front row or start off the back. That's a very blanket statement, but that doesn't count if it's raining, it's a technical course or anything like that. But in a local race, it's pretty easy to start on the back and decide when you want to move up. This way you can kind of see how everybody's taking things. I definitely don't want to crash like 30 seconds into the first race of the season. And a little more power out of the corners with a little tail gunning makes the first lap really easy.
That's a good tip.
Yeah, definitely. If you're going to be stuck in the middle of the pack on the start, I think it's always worth it to back off and kind of be able to ride your own first lap, see how everybody's doing.
Everyone's going to try that now, but there's only so many people who can be at the back.
I hope people just scoot 50 and 100 feet back from the start line. Yeah. No, it's local racing is different, but yeah, it's a good strategy. I think I either try to be first row or off the back.
It just looked like it started to pick up right now.
Yeah, and so you'll actually see the race kind of string out. One of the interesting parts about the first race is everybody wants to win, right? So this race was pretty strung out almost the whole time. This would probably be the hardest season opener I've had in a while, which I wasn't expecting.
Yeah, this is a late January race.
Yeah, and one more thing you can do is, even though the race is hard, I didn't get a really long warm-up going into this race, so what I was kind of also doing is trying to look for an opportunity to pedal as hard as I wanted to. So you'll kind of see the race string out, and you can see him bending around this corner to the right. I wanted to do a small effort just to see how it felt for me and to see how the wind was and to see who's chasing and things like that. So you'll see it's hard enough that one lap in, wheels are already being dropped.
Yeah, you can see there's a breakaway starting.
Yeah, so it's starting right from the gun. And that's one of those times where you're punished if you really are at the back. So you can kind of see it fanning out, and that's where I'm just going to keep the power on. The first lap wasn't that hard, so when the riders fan out like that, it's so much easier just to keep pedaling a little bit harder than everybody else and get a big chunk of passing done all at once.
Everyone else treats it like a group ride, where when they slow down. But now you're almost at the front of the field.
Yeah.
And you're a very strong rider, so all these looks like huge watts. It's not, it is big, but it's not an all-out effort for you.
Yeah, I do weigh 210 pounds probably, so my watts look a little different than some people's.
What was your normalized power for this race?
360, I think.
Yeah, that's insane.
So one of the other things is, for me on this course, my best area is going to be these two corners. So I always try to move up or advance in the places that I'm stronger, and the rest of the time there's so much shelter that it doesn't make a lot of sense. People also accelerate out of these corners quite a bit, so there's a little more fatigue in the legs kind of coming, let's say, right now. So that's when I was saying it's easier for me to do an effort off the front where I can pedal as hard as I want and kind of think of this as like an opener. I didn't get to finish my warm-up before the race, so this is what I would call an opener. And I definitely don't want to win. I'm not trying to do anything else other than stretch my legs a little bit.
But if people came up with you.
Yeah.
So you've told me this before, is that you do like little, I'm going to call them, I'm going to make this up, like peacocks, where you go out in front and you kind of dangle your tail feathers. You don't go too far off the front, just far enough where you say, hey, does anyone want to join me?
Yeah.
And you kind of advertise that you want to start a break. Like right now, that although that is a lot of watts for most people, for you, that maybe I don't know. It's probably going to go down here in a second, but
Yeah, it's about threshold, right? Like this is a pace that I could sustain for a long time if nobody caught up to me.
Yep.
So the idea is hopefully some other people will see and know that I'm wanting to start a breakaway for the day, and then I have more people to come along.
that's going to be a new term in cycling, the peacock.
I'm all about it. Let's do it.
Look at Pete peacocking up there.
So as you can see, the other nice thing is you can see who's willing to chase you down and who's doing the work already. One of the kind of recurring themes of this race for me is the TrainerRoad team was really on top of things and pretty much always were chasing you down.
They're doing it right now.
There was a couple single strong riders that were also doing a lot of the chasing, which was kind of surprising to me rather than doing any bridging. But the other nice thing is right when you get caught, it really pays dividends if you fight for position a little bit more. Like you're already at the front of the race. You might as well pedal a little bit harder and slot in. Especially at a race like this, it's so much easier to be at the front and drift back than to go through the field and then realize there's something you have to do.
So why are these riders rotating on the front?
I don't know. That's a great question.
There's no one up the road.
And they're
This guy's going pretty hard, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, why would you do that?
I wouldn't. But,
okay.
There was a lot of work being done in this race, which I didn't talk to each and everyone after the race, so I don't know, but there was a lot of pedaling hard on the front of the field, just kind of stringing it out. I don't even know.
Man, you take these corners so well. Do you have any tips on these corners?
I would say those corners especially, it's more about making the corner as wide as you possibly can, not cutting anything too sharp, and really leaning your bike and getting your weight kind of centered over your bike. Your tires have a lot more grip than you think. The only time you're going to wash out in a corner is if you hit a pedal or there's some dirt or oil or something like that. If you're on your regular road tires, the road's clean. It takes a lot of work to go so fast that your tires won't be able to hold anymore.
Now, they flicked you off to the front. And you actually lowered the power, and then the race there was a attack after that. Yeah. And that was kind of what you were saying, is there's no reason to be on the front and pull the whole field.
Exactly. And so as soon as you get to the front, my philosophy is stop pedaling pretty much as soon as you get the chance. Someone else will always come around. It's pretty common to let everybody else do the work for you.
We're going to jump ahead about halfway through the race, 31 minutes in.
Yeah.
What happens here?
Well, so after that first kind of probing attack, or peacocking rather, there's the middle of the race was really boring. After being off the front, you can kind of see that it was hard work up there. There was a lot of motivation to chase everything down. So kind of what I kept doing at this point was, if a break gets up the road, you can kind of slot out. I can see who it is, see if it's anyone I need to worry about, and then see who's doing the chasing. And so it's this constant game where you see who's up the road, whether it's worthwhile for you to be up there, and who's going to chase it back. And so it's for the middle 30 minutes of this race, it would be people who I weren't worried about, and there's a strong team willing to chase them back, or those strong single riders. So for the most of the middle race, it really just looked like this. It was me kind of taking the corner smoothly, not on that one, and trying to save as much energy as I could. There's kind of a couple different pockets you can be in where there's less energy. So kind of the front third of the race is a little less energy, and the back third of the race is a little less energy. The middle, there's lots of more fighting and people who are either trying to move up or dropping back, and it causes some confusion.
So how do you, if you look up in the break, how do you know if someone's a threat or not?
It's a good question. In this race, there was like 3 or 4 guys who I was concerned about. Gavin from Mark Pro was there. A couple of the TrainerRoad guys are pretty strong. Matt Chattelong from Mike's was there. But there weren't any real powerhouses that would make a breakaway stick in this race, or at least not that I could think of. And the motivation was so high that I was barely worried about breakaways in this race, even though that's the way I wanted this race to go. It didn't seem like their firepower was going to be there. So that's why I just hung out.
So if you saw a breakaway with like all of those people in it, you would want to try your hardest to get into it.
Yep.
Because they're also on the big teams, and then it's not going to be chased.
Exactly. And so the other way is if 3 or 4 of the guys up the road are from the strong teams that were doing the chasing, that's going to change things a lot. So then you do have your responsibility to get up there, and the teams who have been chasing all day won't chase this one specifically.
So if maybe there was a breakaway without the TrainerRoad guys, then you might not want to be in that break, or at least give TrainerRoad a chance to chase it back.
Yeah. Okay. Exactly. And so that's why it's this constant assessment where you're going to look over and over and over and decide. There's like five facets of every breakaway that you need to think about.
That's got to be really hard. Like, how do you look up the road and see these jerseys? They're a lot of them look kind of the same.
They do. And
like right now, how do you tell?
So the GoPro's on my handlebars, so that's a little harder. I'm a big guy, so I can see over most people's heads. But there's kind of for me, I always look at who's chasing and who's motivated more than who's in the break, because it doesn't matter how motivated the break is if the chase is more motivated. And if someone's been chasing things back all day, either they're getting tired or they're just going to keep closing things down. And on this race, TrainerRoad just kept shutting things down. So it didn't seem like they were tiring out at all.
Can we go back to that last corner too? Yeah. You've done this the past couple times. You come in on the inside, you pass people, and then you do a pretty good job out of the apex. That's not the line everyone else is taking.
Yeah, there's a couple things I'm doing in this corner a lot. I'm either taking the inside or the outside, and these big surges hurt me a little bit, but not if they're only a couple seconds long. So what I purposely do is don't touch the brakes. I know I don't have to break through those corners, so if I can get through, you'll kind of hear some people grabbing brakes about right now, and I just don't hit the brakes.
You pedal like pretty early in the corner.
Yeah, and pretty much as soon as you can straighten this out, we call it straightening it out, where as soon as you've kind of passed the apex, you can start pedaling. Another good one is this next corner is still hard, and the wind's kind of coming up. And the following corner, this last 90 degrees into the start finish, is another really good example where I'll coast earlier than everybody else, and then I'll start pedaling earlier than everybody else. So the idea is I can pedal through that last corner while everybody else is re-accelerating. So we'll see how you did it. Yeah, we'll see if I'm not knocking it out. So as you see, I stay left, which makes the corner wider, so it's less serious, and then I go back up to 700 watts going through the corner. And that way I don't really have to re-accelerate. If you watch this race, I think there'll be a full version of my race out. You can watch everybody sprinting out of this corner a lot, and even though I'll do some higher watts, I never have to get out of the saddle and sprint because you start putting the power down a little earlier.
In my race, we have another video on TrainerRoad's channel of me doing this, and I always left a gap. I didn't pedal into it, and it would leave this gap, and it was horrible. Okay, let's move ahead now to 54 minutes into the race.
So we're pretty much into the final 13 minutes of the race. So the race has been strung out kind of single file just like this the whole time, which a lot of people are more fatigued now than they have been, and that's kind of the difference with this 70-minute race, or even it's only an hour and 8 minutes, but that's a big difference in the last 8 minutes, and you'll kind of see people start coming apart a little bit, and there'll be a much different crowd at the front of the race in the last 10 minutes.
How are you feeling in this race?
Pretty good. Actually, at this point, I still felt pretty good. A lot of the chasing has already happened. There've been attacks all race, and so kind of at this point, I really don't want to sprint. There's 5 sprinters there that are definitely going to beat me in a real heads-up sprint. So it's kind of my plan to start attacking where I'm feeling good. So going through those corners, I always take those a little bit better, or it's a little easier on me. So attacking into this back section where there's a little bit of a cross headwind, and usually people can still respond, like this TrainerRoad guy. The whole goal is to put a little bit of pressure on the sprint teams. And some of the sprinters didn't have teammates, so I was kind of hoping they might even jump along. I'm more capable of sprinting heads up with a sprinter in a breakaway than I am out of a field sprint. So I have one of the TrainerRoad guys who jumped along, which is rad because they've been chasing everything down. So the gap looked pretty decent at this point, and I remember I'm still working pretty hard. I remember thinking he might not pull through.
Yeah, how do you know if he's gonna? You don't know until he does it, right?
You don't know until he
'Cause
does
they
it.
have a sprinter.
Yep. So give him the elbow. He does pull through. Nice hard pull, which is actually perfect. And looking back, you can see there's someone trying to bridge. And I remember thinking, I hope that's not his teammate. But he gives me the flick through. And so this isn't quite ideal, but 10 or 12 minutes left in the race off the front with the other strong team. I'm definitely happy to work pretty hard with this. And I am working hard.
Now, do you want that person to bridge up if it's not his teammate? Do you want to slow down and let them join, or they just have to make it?
I think this one, you have to be going fast enough that either they're going to make it or they're not, but you shouldn't slow down.
Oh, he made it.
And so
it's a teammate.
It's a teammate.
Uh-oh.
So that's good and bad. That means they're probably going to work harder.
They're committed now.
They're committed because they know they can probably beat me if they do stick it. And you can see it takes me some work to get back up to them. Starting the move is a little more energy intensive than following a move, so I took most of the brunt of that. And then having two guys, one guy medium fresh and another guy who just bridged up, there's some power there. So I remember looking back in these corners, and you can see they're not that far behind us. They're only 5 seconds behind us.
Now this is when the other teams, if there's two teammates, like they really want to come, right?
Yep. So that's kind of the interesting part is I'm hoping these guys will still work and someone will blow up on the front of the field and not be able to bring us back. But you kind of have to go. You have to decide. This is a pretty good chance for the breakaway to succeed. At least as far as with 10 minutes left, it's a little too early. If I could have picked, I probably would have changed. Maybe the last 5 minutes, this exact same move.
Why is that? Because it's harder to last longer? Or?
Yeah, 10 minutes off the front is a long time, even with only 3 guys. If this was 5 or 6 guys and we were all working hard, then I wouldn't worry. But you can see we did tire out whoever was doing the main set of chasing, and the teammate opts out. So that the guy in front of me is the one working, and the one sitting on is either maybe he can sprint or he's tired.
You look tired in the picture, or like in the camera.
I'm going to go with tired. In the race, I couldn't decide whether he was going to sprint or not.
You guys look like you opened up the gap even more.
Yeah, so as long as that's kind of the one, if you are
tired, look at that.
If you are a breakaway guy, the one thing to remember is if you have any gap at all, even if it's 10 feet. I've lost races, and I don't think I've ever won a race, but I've definitely lost races by not closing down the last 10 feet and the breakaway sticks. So if you have any gap at all, always stay on. But I think here's where we get brought back. It's a hard day. There's enough people still willing to chase. The other thing with this course is hanging out in the field is so easy. If you look in the middle section, it's my heart rate's like it's me hanging out.
Yeah.
So luckily this guy's still working. I would say this is where if I was the TrainerRoad guys, I would have looked back and seen that we're just close enough, and I'm sure their sprinter is going to need some help soon. So, but as you can see, it takes one more person a lot of work to shut down this last little bit.
And everyone's single file too. That's a way to tell if they're really chasing, right? You look back and you see single file.
Yeah, and that's if you can attack while it's single file, it's always a little better. But that mantra of attack when it's hard is actually true.
But isn't that hard though? Because it's high wind.
Yeah.
Like, how do you do that?
Well, you should be at the front. You're definitely not going to attack from 30 or 40 goals back when it's hard and make any progress. So, as you can see, kind of staying near the front during this final 10 minutes is important.
Would you attack out of those like corners back there? So like if it's single file and you get into a technical section, attack out of that or into that?
Depends what your technical skills are. If you can corner really well, to attack into the corners, and if you can't corner quite as well, make it through the corners and then really put out an attack when you're leaving.
Because then you can gap that. The acceleration is where you can gap it in relative to everyone else. Everyone has to do the same acceleration.
Exactly. And the acceleration gets multiplied as you go through the whip kind of cracks as you go through the field. So the guys at the end are having to do even more of an attack.
That's a good way to kind of hurt the field.
Yep. And so if it's a really technical course and you are near or on the front, you can do about 70% whip cracking, and most of the guys have to go as hard as they can just to stay on. So this course is not like that, but there are plenty of opportunities where you can implement that.
Do you have a gap again?
The field's kind of splintering behind us. I think that was a preem lap. What I was really hoping is someone was going to sprint, like lead out the sprint for the preem, and then we could kind of bulldoze through the remnants.
Yeah, talk about that. What's that strategy?
Yeah, so sprints or preem sprints, pretty much there's someone who wants to go all in for whatever preem is available. And they'll put in as much effort as needed to win the preem, and then they don't care after that. So what you can do is you can kind of follow wheels or follow the sprinter who's winning the preem, and they've already done the big acceleration for you. So all you have to do is keep the power on, and you've already kind of gotten the gap, or the elastic's been snapped.
They've been kind of like your lead out man past the finish line.
Exactly. So especially if you care more about winning the race than the preem, follow those guys going after the preems, and you'll get the free ride up to the front and off the front.
There's Jeff from NorCal Cycling behind you. He eventually gets second in this race.
And Matt was just ahead of me. So as you can see in the last 10 minutes, everybody who's a serious contender is there. Anthony, I think, got third. So top three in the race are all right around me, and it's 10 minutes to go. And that's when... So that was a pretty smooth corner. So the idea is you made that corner nice and wide, and then you don't have to accelerate quite so much. This last stretch was definitely the hardest part of the whole course. The wind was blowing, and after coming out of those corners, you had to pedal pretty hard here.
Here's your move again. Are you trying to do another break?
Yeah, you'd figure it's the only option I have. So I'm definitely not going to sprint, and after attacking and being off the front, my sprint is pretty much gone. Yeah. The only thing I can do is keep attacking and hoping. The problem is every time I would attack, I would look over and there'd be 3 or 4 or 5 guys following me, and I'm not going to peel anybody off the front like that. I don't have the power to do that.
Well, what do you mean following you? Because you want them to be in the breakaway, but you mean the front of the group's following you?
Yeah, and they don't accelerate. Either I don't accelerate hard enough, or they don't accelerate hard enough, and so there's no gap. So all we're really doing is steering the field,
just like you did just there.
Yeah,
you pretty much just it's like taffy. It kind of got stretched out, but it didn't break.
It didn't break. So the important part is that it always should break. And if the field isn't, if you think you're putting the field into a hurt locker and it's all strung out behind you, I guarantee they're not hurting as bad as you are making that happen to them. Mm-hmm. So
unless there's breaks,
unless you can see fractures in the field, so there's 5 or 10 foot gaps in 2 or 3 riders at a time, it's not you hurting the field, it's you hurting yourself.
And this was interesting. You when you kind of slowed it down, it slowed down to 25, and then there was an attack. And that happens almost every time?
Every time. And so the idea is you want to slow it just enough so that you get past, but not enough everybody comes around you in a big surge. So it looks like I did a decent job holding position. I still want to stay near-ish to the front. Like I said, I'm not going to sprint, but I'll definitely go for a last lap Hail Mary or something like that if I can. But yeah, the last lap's hard. I think it's really a position battle more than a fitness battle.
How do you battle for position?
Better sometimes than others. It's all about handlebar position. If you can get your handlebars in front of someone else's, you kind of own that spot.
Well, you say that, but on corners, that's not the case, right?
Yeah, so then it's not braking, right? Okay. So the less you brake or the more you accelerate, the better. It's kind of like if you have the power, you have the position. So if you can out-pedal anyone next to you, you can always win that position battle. Or if you don't brake as quickly or as soon as they do, you win the position battle. So it's not only getting your hand, or it's how you get your handlebars in front of the other person's, whether it's not braking or pedaling harder.
I feel like sometimes in corners, though, the person on the inside, they'll like drift into me, and yeah. I tell them my handlebars in front of you, but they
don't care. Right?
Yeah, I get pushed out.
So this is fighting for the front of the field is especially at the end of the race like this. For me, I need to be there so that if an attack like this goes, I'm nearby, and so I'll spend a lot of extra energy staying near the front so that I can kind of respond to something like this. The problem is I think I looked back, and you can just see the field is so ready to cover anything. Nothing really has the legs to get away. I'm pretty sure this is one to go. So that for me means I'm pretty much a lost cause. I don't necessarily really want to sprint, but if I find myself in a good position, I still will. But I'm a little tired for sure.
Yeah, you kind of tried all your matches before.
Yeah, because I know that I'm not going to win the race in a sprint, but I might win it in breakaway. And so for me, that's always a better option. I'll take the 1% option and not fight through this.
Everyone slow down, and you're kind of trying to float up, but you got caught.
Yeah, so the gaps kind of closed at the end of the race. Everybody else is spread out too, and everybody else is making some big power moves. One of the things that happens is this is a slight little climb. So everybody else can all accelerate up the climb and kind of stay steady. With the problem with this half a lap to go is really the fight is into these corners. And if you're in good position into the corners, you're pretty much okay.
Oh, that was scary.
So one of the riders pulled his cleat out, and I'm pretty sure that's when I decided maybe I didn't need to sprint anymore. But you can watch. There's one guy up the front. The teams are all kind of gone from the chasing, and so it really is just a couple guys fighting it out to chase down that one guy. And as you can see, when we're going fast in the last lap, everybody takes the corners really cleanly because there's only one line when you're going that fast.
Yeah, I saw that guy. He attacked into the guy that's up the front right now. Attacked into the technical section.
Yep, and that's the best way to get a gap really easily without pedaling that much harder.
Yeah. And then everyone behind you is gapped off.
Yep, and I'm getting gapped off. I mean, this is the.
Well, you're not putting out power anymore. I think you kind of gave up.
I did give up a little bit, but so there's kind of two things. One more thing you can do at the end of the race is you want to stay going fast enough that you're not in anybody's way, but us sprinting for 25th or whatever we got isn't not a whole lot of sense and isn't super safe. So if you are in a position like this, it makes way more sense to keep pedaling hard but not sprinting. Right?
And hold your line.
Hold your line. So.
There's no one next to you right now, then everyone's kind of...
Yep, that's it.
Well, great job, Pete. I learned a lot. Wish that brake would have stuck.
Yeah, me too.
But I'm glad you didn't crash with that pedal coming out.
Next time.
Next time.